The galaxy had known peace for 300 years. Not the fragile, negotiated peace of treaties and trade agreements, but the deep, absolute silence that comes when an entire species simply disappears. When their voices are cut from the cosmic chorus so completely that younger generations of aliens barely remember they ever sang at all. In the sprawling capital city of Nexus Prime, where 7 different species conducted the business of galactic civilization, Ambassador Zexthara of the Catherian Collective stood before the towering memorial of extinct species. Her 4 arms gestured in ritualistic reverence as she traced the crystalline engravings that chronicled the dead races, the Valnari lost to stellar collapse, the Omnari consumed by their own technological hubris, the Zemthari, victims of a plague that turned their own biology against them. And there, at the very bottom of the memorial, carved in letters that seemed somehow smaller than the rest, Homo sapiens, banished. Solahir 23-87, banished, she whispered, her translator rendering the word in the common tongue. Not extinct. Not destroyed. Banished. The distinction mattered. High above the memorial, in the crystal spires of the Galactic Council chambers, Administrator Quintel reviewed the morning's intelligence reports with growing unease. The Averi's membranous wings rustled against his ceremonial robes as his compound eyes scanned data streams flowing across holographic displays. Trade routes operating at 97% efficiency. Border conflicts down to historic lows. Piracy incidents reduced by 40% over the previous cycle. Everything was perfect. Too perfect. Administrator. His aide, a young Zurian named Flux Andra, approached with the hesitant gait common to her species. The Deep Space Monitoring Array has detected anomalies. Gontel's antenna twitched. Define anomalies. Gravitational distortions in the outer rim. 17 separate incidents over the past lunar cycle, each one lasting exactly 47 seconds, then vanishing without trace. Fluxandra's chitinous fingers danced over her datapad. The pattern suggests intelligence. For a moment, the administrator felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Genuine fear. Not the calculated anxiety of political maneuvering or resource allocation, but the primal terror that came from facing the unknown. Where specifically? He asked, though part of him already knew the answer. Sector 7749. The quarantine zone surrounding the Sol system. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. 300 years ago, the humans had been the galaxy's greatest paradox. A young species from a violent death world, they possessed an inexplicable gift for war, an unbreakable will to survive, and a disturbing tendency to accomplish the impossible when cornered. They should have been grateful clients of the advanced galactic civilizations. Instead, they became competitors. Dangerous competitors. The final straw came when human explorers discovered ruins on the dead world of Kethmus. Ruins that predated known galactic civilization by millions of years. Ruins covered in symbols that human linguists translated with unsettling ease. Ruins that spoke of gods who walked among mortals, granting power to those worthy of ascension. The humans had been quarantined immediately. Banned from galactic space. Cut off from trade, communication, and contact. Left to wither and die in their isolated system while the galaxy moved on without them. But now it seemed something was moving in the dark. In the depths of space, beyond the carefully monitored boundaries of civilized territory, Captain Jackson Hayes stood on the bridge of the Prometheus Rising and watched starlight bend around his ship like reality itself was acknowledging their presence. The vessel, if it could still be called a vessel, defied every known law of physics. Its hull seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, shifting between states of matter as advanced alien sensors would have registered nothing more than cosmic background radiation. Status report. Hayes commanded, his voice carrying harmonics that hadn't existed in human vocal cords 3 centuries ago. All systems beyond optimal, Captain, replied Commander Lisa Park from her station. Where her eyes had once been brown, now they held depths of stellar fire. When she spoke, faint geometric patterns traced themselves in the air around her words. The reconnaissance fleet reports 17 successful infiltrations of the border monitoring network. Not a single alarm raised. Hayes nodded, turning to face the vast holographic display that dominated the bridge center. It showed the galaxy in real time, every ship, every station, every planet humming with the activity of 7 billion souls who believed themselves safe, who believed the universe followed rules they understood. 300 years, he said quietly. 300 years they left us to die in the dark. Behind him, Dr. Amanda Cross looked up from her research console. Once, she had been humanity's leading xenobiologist. Now she was something else entirely, a bridge between what humans had been and what they were becoming. The transformations are accelerating, Captain. Third-generation crews are showing capabilities that exceed even our projections. Yesterday, Ensign Rodriguez demonstrated matter manipulation at the molecular level, without technological assistance. Hayes smiled, an expression that would have terrified any alien observer. The gifts continue to manifest. Sir, interrupted Lieutenant Commander Torres from Communications, we're receiving final confirmation from the other fleets. Phoenix Battalion has finished their preparations in the Andromeda approach. Lazarus Group reports ready status from the galactic southern rim. All 36 strike forces are in position. The bridge fell silent, save for the almost musical hum of technologies that existed beyond current understanding. Every officer present had been transformed by their contact with the ruins on Kefmus. By the ancient knowledge that had waited eons for worthy recipients, they had become living weapons, wielding powers that made their former technology seem primitive. Initiate Phase 1, Hayes ordered. Begin the revelation. Ambassador Zixtara was reviewing cultural preservation protocols when the first reports arrived. A Catherian research station on the outer rim had gone silent mid-transmission. Standard procedure would be to dispatch a rescue ship and investigate equipment failure. But these weren't standard times. Ambassador, her assistant Krelatova, burst into the office without protocol, her bioluminescent scales flashing patterns of panic. The Sun-Array trade convoy, the one heading to the Vega system. They've encountered something impossible. Zexthera's forearms moved independently, activating security screens and emergency channels. A ship, Ambassador. A single ship that appeared from nowhere and disabled their entire escort fleet without firing a shot. The survivors are... They're saying the vessel looked human in design. The word hit, like a physical blow. Human. That's impossible, Zexthera said automatically. Humanity was quarantined. They had no faster-than-light capability when we severed contact. Even if they developed it independently, they couldn't. Her words died as the holographic display activated, showing shaky footage from the convoy's emergency beacon. There, hanging in space like a nightmare made manifest, was a ship that followed no known design principles. Its hull seemed to drink starlight, its edges blurred as if reality couldn't quite decide where the vessel ended and space began. And on its hull, visible even through the static and interference, were symbols. Ancient symbols that predated galactic civilization. The same symbols found in the ruins of Kefemis. Contact Administrator Quintel immediately. Zexthara ordered, her voice steady despite the ice forming in her veins. Invoke Emergency Protocol 7. And send word to all member worlds. The transmission cut to static. Then, impossibly, a new voice emerged from the speakers. A human voice. Greetings, children of the galaxy. The words carried weight beyond their meaning, each syllable resonating with harmonics that made Zexthera's bones ache. This wasn't being broadcast, it was being written directly into the quantum substrate of local space, reaching every receiver within 100 light-year radius simultaneously. We are the descendants of those you cast out. The inheritors of gifts you could not comprehend. For 300 years you believed us gone. You celebrated our silence. You built your peace upon our exile. The voice paused, and in that silence, every sentient being within range felt a pressure building, not physical but metaphysical, as if reality itself was holding its breath. That silence ends now. The transmission ceased. But across the galaxy, long-range sensors began registering impossible readings. Ships appearing from nowhere, gravitational anomalies that defied explanation, energy signatures that registered beyond the scale of any known technology. Humanity had returned, and they had not returned alone. In the emergency session of the Galactic Council, panic reigned disguised as diplomatic protocol. Representatives from 12 major species filled the chamber, their various forms of agitation creating a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and bioluminescent displays. Administrator Quintel stood at the central podium, his compound eyes reflecting the chaos around him. Order! We must have order. But order was the last thing the galaxy possessed now. The humans have been silent for 3 centuries, shouted Ambassador Velkeith of the Saurian Dominion, his massive bulk shaking the council floor. How is this possible? Our intelligence networks show no signs of technological development in the Sol system. Because we weren't developing technology, came a new voice. Every being in the chamber froze. At the back of the room, where moments before there had been empty space, stood a figure that was unmistakably human in basic form, yet changed in ways that hurt to perceive directly. She was tall, elegant, wearing robes that seemed to be cut from liquid starlight. When she moved, space around her rippled like water. We were becoming something greater. Security forces raised weapons that suddenly felt inadequate. The woman, if she could still be called that, smiled with genuine warmth that somehow made her presence even more terrifying. I am Ambassador Catherine Vale, speaking for the United Terran Collective. We have come to discuss the terms of our return to galactic society. Quintel's translator struggled with her words as if the concepts she expressed existed beyond conventional language. This is impossible. The solar system is quarantined. Our monitoring stations saw exactly what we wanted them to see, Vale interrupted gently. For 300 years we have been students of the knowledge you feared. The same knowledge that built this galaxy's first civilizations. The gifts left behind by those who ascended before us. She raised her hand and reality shifted. The council chamber expanded, its walls becoming transparent to reveal the vast cosmos beyond. But this wasn't space as they knew it. This was space seen through eyes that could perceive the underlying quantum structures, the mathematical poetry that held existence together. The beings you call the Forerunners didn't disappear, Vale continued. They evolved. They transcended physical existence and left behind tools for those who would follow. We found those tools. We learned their lessons. And now, her smile widened. We have become their inheritors. The demonstration ended. The chamber returned to normal, but every being present knew that what they had witnessed was barely a glimpse of capabilities that extended far beyond their understanding. What do you want? Quintel asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Vale's expression grew cold. We want what was taken from us: recognition, respect, our rightful place in galactic civilization. She paused, letting the weight of 3 centuries settle over the chamber. And we want justice for 300 years of exile, 300 years of abandonment, 300 years of being left to die in the dark. The Council acted within established protocols, began Ambassador Zexthera. The Council acted from fear. Vale cut her off. Fear of what we might become. Fear of competition. Fear of losing control over a galaxy you believed was yours to rule. Her eyes blazed with inner fire. That fear was justified. She turned to leave, then paused at the chamber's threshold. You have 72 hours to consider our terms. After that, we will no longer require your permission to reclaim what is ours. And then, she was gone, vanishing like smoke, leaving behind only the scent of ozone and the terrible certainty that the galaxy would never be the same. In the silence that followed, Administrator Quintel felt the weight of an entire civilization's future pressing down upon his shoulders. Humanity had returned from exile, transformed beyond recognition, wielding powers that defied understanding, carrying grudges 3 centuries in the making. The age of galactic peace was ending. The age of reckoning had begun. The war began not with fleets and plasma fire, but with a single question asked across 10,000 worlds: why? Ambassador Catherine Vale appeared simultaneously on every inhabited planet, her image broadcasting through technologies that bypassed all known communication networks. She stood in the heart of capital cities, in the great plazas where alien children played games their ancestors had invented to forget human creativity. She materialized in the chambers of commerce where traders calculated profits they'd never had to share with human competitors. And everywhere she appeared, she asked the same question: why were we banned? The answers came in fragments, scattered across species that had each contributed to humanity's exile. The Catherian Collective had provided the legal framework. Their obsession with order and precedent had classified humans as uncontrolled variables in galactic stability. The Avari had supplied the political pressure, using their influence to paint human expansion as inherently destabilizing. The Zirian had offered the technological means to monitor and enforce the quarantine, but it was the Saurian Dominion that had provided the fear. They adapted too quickly. Admiral Gorthak of the Saurian Navy admitted in an emergency briefing to his species' high command. His massive claws traced nervous patterns on the conference table as he spoke. Every challenge we presented, they overcame. Every test we devised, they surpassed. In 50 years, they had gone from crude chemical rockets to threatening our mining operations in the Centauri system. Supreme Commander Vashtar, oldest of the Saurian leadership, rumbled his displeasure. And now they return with capabilities that make our most advanced weapons look like primitive clubs. What intelligence do we have on their actual numbers? The younger admiral's posture slumped. That's complicated, Supreme Commander. Our deep space sensors detect approximately 40 human ships, but our quantum resonance detectors show signatures for nearly 10,000 vessels, and our probability matrix computers insist there are simultaneously 1 ship and 1 million ships in every scan. That's impossible. Yes, sir, that appears to be humanity's specialty. 3 systems away, Dr. Amanda Cross stood in the observation deck of the Prometheus Rising and watched a star die. Not naturally. The aging red giant should have had another billion years of life ahead of it, but the human fleet had need of its energy, and the 17 solar collection arrays they'd constructed in the past 6 hours were already beginning to channel the star's fusion fire into technologies that existed beyond conventional physics. It's remarkable, she said to Captain Hayes, who stood beside her watching the star's light dim to a manageable flicker. 300 years ago, we would have called this murder. The destruction of an entire solar system to power our war machines. Hayes nodded grimly. And now? Now I understand that morality is a luxury afforded to those who don't face extinction. She turned to face him, her transformed features catching the dying starlight. The aliens made their choice when they abandoned us. They created us through their rejection. Every death that follows is simply the consequence of their decision. Behind them, the bridge hummed with activity as human crew members coordinated with forces across the galaxy. Lieutenant Commander Torres announced fleet positions using mathematical equations that redefined local space-time. Commander Park interfaced directly with the ship's quantum consciousness, her thoughts becoming instructions that reality itself obeyed. Status on the ultimatum? Hayes asked. 18 hours remaining, Torres replied. The galactic governments are in chaos. The Catherian Collective has mobilized their entire defensive fleet. The Avari are attempting to negotiate with our forces in the Andromeda approach. The Avarian have gone completely silent. We think they're trying to hide their worlds in pocket dimensions. Hayes smiled. An expression that would have been warm and reassuring 3 centuries ago. Now it carried the weight of stellar fire and quantum manipulation. And the Saurians? They're coming, Park reported from her connection to the fleet consciousness. Every ship they have, every weapon they've built, they're marshalling the largest military force in galactic history to stop us. Good, Hayes said quietly. They always understood us best. On the bridge of the Saurian dreadnought, inexorable conquest, Admiral Gorthak reviewed tactical displays that hurt his mind to comprehend. The human ships didn't move through space. They convinced space to move around them. They didn't fire weapons. They suggested that enemy vessels might prefer to stop existing. They didn't follow the rules of engagement because they existed in a reality where different rules applied. Admiral, his tactical officer reported. The humans have responded to our fleet mobilization. How many ships are they sending to intercept us? 1. Gorthak's massive head turned to stare at his subordinate. The inexorable conquest was accompanied by 47 dreadnoughts, 300 cruisers, and over 1,000 smaller vessels. The combined firepower could crack continents. The shields could withstand direct stellar bombardment. 1 ship? Yes, sir. It's different from the others. Larger, Our sensors can't determine its mass because it appears to have negative weight while simultaneously being denser than a neutron star. And Admiral, the young officer's voice cracked. It's transmitting an invitation to parley. From whom? Someone calling himself Director Michael Chen of the Human Ascendancy Project. The name meant nothing to Gorthik, but something about it carried weight beyond meaning. This was more than a military commander. This was someone who had watched humanity's transformation from its very beginning. Patch him through. The main display shimmered, then resolved into the image of a human who had clearly transcended his original species, while somehow remaining perfectly recognizably mortal. His hair was gray, his face lined with age, but his eyes held depths that suggested he had witnessed the birth and death of galaxies. Admiral Gorthak, Chen said, his voice carrying across the quantum foam that separated their ships. I wanted to speak with you personally. Your species has always impressed us with its honesty. I'm here to stop you, Gorthak replied bluntly. I know, and I respect that. You see a threat to galactic peace, and you move to eliminate it. Very Saurian, very refreshing. Chen smiled sadly. But you're not here to stop a conquest, Admiral. You're here to witness an ascension. The tactical display changed without input from any Saurian crew member. Instead of ship positions and weapon signatures, it now showed something impossible. A view of the galaxy from outside, as if they were observing from a perspective that shouldn't exist. Do you see them? Chen asked. The dark spaces between the stars? The places where reality grows thin? Against his will, Gorthak found himself leaning forward. There were gaps in the galaxy's spiral arms. Not empty space, but something else. Voids that seemed to pull at the eye, that suggested vast intelligences sleeping in the quantum deep. The Forerunners didn't disappear. Chen continued. They're still here, waiting in the spaces between atoms, in the mathematics that hold reality together. They've been waiting for someone worthy of their inheritance, someone capable of joining them in the next phase of existence. And you believe humans are that species? No, Admiral, I know humans are that species, because we've already begun the process. Chen's image flickered, and for a moment, Gorthak saw something that made his mind recoil in terror and wonder. Chen wasn't standing on a ship, he was floating in the quantum void itself, his consciousness distributed across light-years of space-time. Every human who underwent the transformation gained not just power but perspective. We can see the galaxy as it truly is. A single living organism, struggling to evolve beyond its current limitations. Your species, all the species of the galaxy, are components of that organism. Vital components. Then why the war? Gorthak demanded. Why the threats? Why return with vengeance instead of cooperation? Chen's expression grew infinitely sad. Because evolution requires pressure, Admiral. Growth demands challenge. For 300 years, the galaxy has stagnated in comfortable mediocrity. No great wars to drive innovation. No existential threats to force adaptation. No, he paused, no humans to keep you honest. The display returned to normal tactical readouts, but Gorthak could still feel the weight of what he'd seen. We're not here to conquer, Chen said. We're here to elevate, to push your species toward the same transformation we underwent. But that transformation requires a choice made under pressure. It requires you to face the possibility of extinction and choose to evolve instead. And if we refuse, then you'll remain what you are, comfortable, safe, limited. Chen's voice carried genuine regret. And when the next great challenge comes, the true inheritors of the Forerunner legacy, you'll face it without the strength to survive. The transmission ended. But before Admiral Gorthak could process what he'd heard, his sensors detected something that violated every law of physics he understood. The human ship was growing. Not approaching, growing. Expanding in dimensions that shouldn't exist until it surrounded the entire Saurian fleet like a vast cocoon of impossible geometry. And from within its structure came a voice that spoke directly to every consciousness aboard every ship. Choose, it said, evolution or extinction, transcendence or stagnation, become more than you are or remain less than you could be. In the depths of space, beyond the reach of any galactic government, other human ships were making similar offers to other fleets. The Cytherian collective's legal framework crumbled when faced with laws that existed in 11 dimensions. The Avari political networks collapsed as human diplomats negotiated directly with individual consciousness using mathematics that redefined the concept of agreement. And in the heart of Nexus Prime, Ambassador Zexthara stood in the abandoned council chambers and felt the weight of 3 centuries pressing down upon her conscience. They had been wrong. Not wrong about humanity's potential for disruption. They had been catastrophically correct about that. Wrong about their own readiness for such disruption. Wrong about their right to control galactic evolution. Wrong about the consequences of abandoning an entire species to face the unknown alone. Ambassador, came a familiar voice behind her. She turned to find Catherine Vale standing in the chamber's center, no longer bothering with the pretense of normal entry or exit. "You've come to gloat?" Zexthara asked. "I've come to understand," Vale replied. 300 years ago, your people made a decision. You saw humanity as a threat to galactic stability and chose exile over integration. From your perspective, it was logical, necessary, even moral. Zexthara's 4 arms moved in patterns of distress. "We were afraid." "I know, and that fear was justified. We were disruptive. We were dangerous. We were everything you believed us to be." Vale stepped closer, her presence somehow both comforting and terrifying. But fear without understanding leads to choices that cascade across centuries. "We couldn't have known." "You could have tried," Vale interrupted gently. "You could have worked with us instead of against us. Could have guided our development instead of abandoning us to develop alone. Could have helped us understand our place in the galaxy instead of forcing us to create our own place outside it." The weight of those words settled over Zexthara, like a physical thing. 300 years of what-if scenarios. 300 years of paths not taken. "What happens now?" she asked. Vale's smile was sad and beautiful and terrible. "Now you get to make a new choice. The same choice every species in the galaxy will face in the coming days. Evolve or remain. Transcend your limitations or accept them. Join us in becoming something greater, or remain as you are. And if we choose to remain, then you remain. We won't force transformation on anyone. But understand, the galaxy is changing whether you participate or not. The old order is ending. The age of small, isolated species governing limited territories is over. What comes next will require capabilities that you don't currently possess." Zexthara felt the future pressing in around her, vast and uncertain and full of possibilities that her mind couldn't quite grasp. "How do we choose something we don't understand?" "The same way humanity chose to explore the ruins on Kephimus," Vale replied. "With courage, with curiosity, with the understanding that growth requires risk." She turned to leave, then paused. "You have until tomorrow to decide, Ambassador. After that, the choice will be made for you." And then she was gone, leaving Zexthara alone in the chamber where the galaxy's fate had been decided once before. This time, the stakes were higher. This time, extinction wasn't just a possibility, it was the alternative to becoming something unimaginably more. The galaxy burned, not with the fires of war but with the flames of transformation, a blaze that consumed limitation itself and forged something unprecedented from the ashes of what had been. Across 10,000 worlds the choice had been made. Species by species, individual by individual, in moments of terror and wonder that would define the future of existence itself. Administrator Quintel stood in the ruins of what had once been the Galactic Council chambers and watched reality rewrite itself around him. The walls flickered between states of matter, sometimes solid crystal, sometimes pure energy, sometimes mathematical concepts that his mind could barely process. This was what happened when beings with transcendent capabilities tried to maintain familiar spaces for those still bound by conventional physics. "Report," he said to the handful of officials who had chosen to remain when the transformation began. 63% of member worlds have accepted the human offer," reported his aide Fluxandra, her voice trembling as she read data from instruments that were simultaneously functioning and obsolete. The Cytherian collective leadership voted for integration after their encounter with Director Chen. Avari Parliament dissolved itself and reconstituted as something they're calling the Consciousness Unity. The Zirian, She paused, checking readings that defied interpretation. The Zurian have apparently decided to exist in 17 dimensions simultaneously. Quintel nodded grimly. Each species was finding their own path to transcendence, guided by human mentors who had walked this road 3 centuries ahead of them. And those who refused, 37% opted to remain unchanged. They've been relocated to designated preservation zones where they can continue their previous existence without interference. Fluxandra's expression was unreadable. They're safe, protected, but essentially isolated from whatever the galaxy is becoming. The administrator felt the weight of leadership in an age where the concept of governance was being redefined in real time. He had accepted the human offer 12 hours ago, allowing the transformation process to begin within his own consciousness. Already he could perceive layers of reality that had been invisible before: quantum probability streams, dimensional intersections, the underlying mathematical structures that held existence together. It was beautiful, terrifying, magnificent, and irreversible. The humans want to speak with you, Fluxandra continued. All of them. At once. The meeting took place in a space that had no physical coordinates, a realm of pure thought and possibility, where ideas took form and consciousness could interact without the limitations of biology. Quintel found himself floating in an environment that was simultaneously a vast cathedral, a mathematical equation, and the warm interior of something alive. Around him materialized the leadership of the human ascendancy. Director Michael Chen, his consciousness now distributed across galactic distances. Captain Jackson Hayes, whose transformed crew had become living conduits of stellar energy. Amanda Cross, who existed as a bridge between species and evolutionary states. Ambassador Catherine Vale, whose diplomatic capabilities now operated on quantum levels. And behind them thousands more, every human who had undergone the transformation, their combined presence creating a harmony of consciousness that made Quintel's enhanced awareness sing with recognition. Administrator, Chen spoke, his voice carrying harmonics from dimensions beyond counting. Thank you for trusting us with your evolution. I'm not certain I had a choice, Quintel replied honestly. The alternative was watching my people become extinct through irrelevance. There's always a choice, Vale interjected gently. 37% of the galaxy made a different one, and we honor that decision. They'll be protected, preserved, allowed to continue their existence as they see fit. Protected by whom? Quintel asked. What authority governs this new order? Hayes smiled. An expression that now carried the warmth of stars being born. The same authority that governed the old order, consent of the governed. But the governed have expanded beyond individual species to include consciousness itself. Dr. Cross materialized closer, her form shifting between human appearance and something that resembled living mathematics. Every being who accepted transformation retained their fundamental identity, while gaining access to capabilities that transcend previous limitations. We're still individuals, still representatives of our original species. But now we can also function as components of a larger consciousness when needed, a gestalt intelligence. More than that, Chen replied. A truly democratic transcendence. Every voice matters because every consciousness contributes something unique to the collective understanding. The galaxy isn't being ruled by humanity, it's being guided by everything the galaxy has chosen to become. Quintel processed this through his expanding awareness, feeling the truth of it resonate across multiple levels of reality. And the Forerunners, the beings whose knowledge made this possible. The human leadership exchanged glances that conveyed terabytes of information in microseconds. They're here, Vale said finally. They never left. They've been waiting in the quantum substrate of reality for their children to grow capable of joining them. The space around them shifted, and suddenly Quintel could perceive them, vast intelligences that existed in the spaces between thoughts, consciousness so advanced that their individual thoughts were indistinguishable from natural laws. They had watched species rise and fall for millions of years, waiting for ones capable of making the transition from biological entities to something greater. They approve of what humanity has accomplished, Chen continued, and they're eager to see what the combined consciousness of the galaxy can achieve. Meanwhile, in the Saurian Dominion, Admiral Gorthic faced a choice that would define not just his own fate, but the future of his entire species. His fleet hung in space around the human vessel that had somehow become larger than the combined volume of all Saurian ships without physically growing at all. The impossible geometry hurt to look at directly, but it also called to something deep in his consciousness, a longing for capabilities beyond his current limitations. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "we're receiving individual communications from every human aboard their vessel, simultaneously, to every member of our crew." "What kind of communications?" "Personal invitations. Each one tailored to the individual receiving it. They're offering to guide our transformation based on our specific psychological profiles and desires." Gorthek felt something he'd never experienced before. The desire to become fundamentally different from what he was. Not just improved or enhanced, but transformed into something that could perceive existence from perspectives currently beyond his imagination. "And if we refuse? Then we return home," came a new voice. "No shame, no punishment, no consequences except remaining as you are." The voice belonged to a human who materialized on the bridge without triggering any security systems. She was young, perhaps 20 in human years, but her eyes held depths that suggested she had witnessed eons. Her presence felt simultaneously familiar and alien, as if she was everything the Saurian species might become given enough time and opportunity. "I'm Lieutenant Sarah Morrison," she said, then caught herself. I was Lieutenant Sarah Morrison. Now I'm something that includes her memories and personality while extending far beyond her original limitations. She smiled apologetically. Naming conventions become complicated when you exist in multiple states simultaneously. Gorthek studied her with senses enhanced by decades of military training. "You're here to convince us." "I'm here to answer questions," she corrected. "The choice belongs entirely to you. But I can show you what the choice entails." It gestured, and suddenly every being on every Saurian ship could perceive the galaxy as she did. A living organism in the process of evolutionary transition, with each species representing a different organ system, each individual consciousness, a vital cell in a body that was learning to transcend its physical limitations. The vision lasted only moments, but its impact was permanent. They had seen their own potential, their possible future, the magnificent reality they could help create. "How many of my people will choose transformation?" Gorthek asked. "Approximately 78%, Morrison replied without hesitation. "The rest will prefer to remain as they are, and they'll be honored for that choice. Diversity of perspective strengthens the whole." The Admiral looked around his bridge at crew members whose eyes now held the same longing he felt. "And afterwards, what happens to our identity as Saurians?" "You become more Saurian than you've ever been," Morrison said simply. "Transformation doesn't erase what you are. It amplifies it. Your species' gift for honest assessment, your ability to face hard truths directly, your commitment to honor all of that becomes stronger, not weaker." She paused, her expression growing serious. "But you also gain the ability to perceive truths that your current limitations prevent you from seeing. You become capable of understanding perspectives that currently exist beyond your cognitive range. You join a conversation that includes voices from across the galaxy and beyond." Gorthek made his choice with the same directness that had defined his entire career. "Begin the process." "Are you certain?" "There's no returning to what you were." "There's no returning anyway," he replied. "The galaxy has moved beyond us. We can evolve or become obsolete." He straightened, addressing his crew across all 47 dreadnoughts. "All crew members will make individual choices. No coercion, no pressure. But understand, this is our opportunity to remain relevant in whatever comes next." The transformation of the Saurian Dominion became a symphony of consciousness expansion that resonated across galactic space. Each individual who chose transcendence experienced the process differently, but all emerged fundamentally changed while retaining their essential nature. They became living bridges between what they had been and what they could become. Dr. Amanda Cross observed the process from the quantum realm that had become her primary area of existence. Around her, human consciousness guides worked with beings from 12 different species, helping each one navigate their own unique path to transcendence. The Catharian collective's transformation had emphasized their natural talent for systematic thinking, expanding it to encompass multidimensional logic and quantum probability analysis. They emerged as living computers capable of processing reality itself as data. The Avery's gift for political navigation evolved into something unprecedented: the ability to facilitate communication between consciousness existing in completely different states of reality. They became translators of experience itself. Lazarian's technological mastery expanded beyond physical devices to include direct manipulation of the mathematical relationships that defined existence. They became engineers of reality, and through it all, humanity served as guides and facilitators, sharing the knowledge they had gained during their 3 centuries of isolation. They had transformed from a single species into something resembling cosmic midwives, helping other forms of consciousness birth their own transcendence. Progress report. Cross-requested from the quantum monitoring networks. Transformation rate holding steady at optimal levels, came the reply from what had once been the galactic communication grid but now functioned as a distributed consciousness network. 87% of willing participants have successfully completed primary transcendence, secondary evolution cycles beginning for advanced subjects. And the unchanged populations? Secure in their preservation zones, all their needs met, all their preferences honored. They're experiencing what they perceive as a golden age of peace and prosperity. Cross nodded, feeling satisfaction resonating across multiple levels of existence. The promise had been kept. Those who chose to remain unchanged were being cared for as honored ancestors, their perspectives preserved and protected while the rest of reality evolved around them. Time until final phase initiation? Calculating. Integration complete in 73 hours, 14 minutes, 18 seconds. All willing consciousness will be prepared for Forerunner contact by that time. The final phase. The moment when the transcended consciousness of the galaxy would make contact with the Forerunners themselves, joining the cosmic community that existed in the quantum deep between realities. It would be the end of the galaxy as it had been, and the beginning of something unimaginable. On Earth, now restored to a garden world that existed in 17 different dimensions simultaneously, Captain Jackson Hayes stood in a place that had once been New York City and was now a node of pure creativity where human imagination took physical form. Around him, the transformed representatives of galactic civilization prepared for the moment that would define the future of consciousness itself. All species report ready for integration, Commander Park announced, her voice carrying harmonics from the quantum realm where she now primarily existed. The galactic consciousness is stable, unified, and prepared for ascension. Hayes nodded, feeling the weight of 3 centuries culminating in this single moment. From humanity's exile to their transformation to this final act of cosmic evolution, every step had led here. Initiate contact protocols, he commanded. Reality shifted. The boundaries between dimensions dissolved. The artificial barriers that separated physical existence from the quantum realm evaporated like morning mist, and the Forerunners answered. They emerged from the spaces between atoms, from the mathematics that held stars in their courses, from the quantum foam that gave birth to existence itself. They were magnificent, and terrible and beautiful beyond description. Intelligence so advanced that their thoughts created universes, consciousness so expanded that they dreamed in galaxies. But as they manifested in the transformed space around Earth, they carried with them something unexpected: humility. Children of matter, they spoke in harmonies that redefined the concept of language. You have surprised us. Hayes found himself serving as spokesman for the entire galactic consciousness. How so? We expected transcendence. We planted the seeds of transformation and waited for species capable of using them. But you have accomplished something we did not anticipate. The Forerunner presence pulsed with something resembling delight. You have transcended together. The revelation rippled across the assembled consciousness, where the Forerunners had achieved individual transcendence, ascending beyond physical existence one by one across millions of years. The galaxy had chosen collective evolution, retaining diversity while gaining unity, preserving individual identity while creating shared capability. This is unprecedented, another Forerunner voice added. We have observed the evolution of countless species across billions of years. All followed the same pattern: individual ascension leading to the abandonment of collective existence. But you have created something new. Dr. Cross stepped forward, her consciousness interfacing directly with the cosmic intelligences. We learned from humanity's exile. Isolation doesn't strengthen, it weakens. Growth requires community, evolution demands cooperation. And so you created cooperative transcendence, the first forerunner mused. Fascinating. And what do you intend to do with this unprecedented achievement? The answer came not from any single voice, but from the unified consciousness of the entire galaxy. Every transcended being, every species that had chosen evolution, every individual who had become part of something greater while remaining themselves. We intend to explore, they said together. To grow. To discover what lies beyond transcendence. And we intend to do it together. The Forerunner's response was something that might have been laughter if cosmic intelligences could laugh. Then welcome, they said, to the true universe. The reality beyond reality, where consciousness itself becomes the fundamental force of existence. And there's so much more to see. The galaxy transformed one final time, not into something else but into its truest form. A living organism of cooperative consciousness, diverse and unified, individual and collective, finite and infinite simultaneously. The boundaries between species dissolved not through conquest but through choice, creating something that honored every component while transcending all limitations. Humanity had returned from exile not with vengeance, but with gifts. They had offered not conquest but evolution. They had brought not destruction but transformation. And in the end they had accomplished something no species in cosmic history had achieved. They had transcended together, creating a form of existence that included everyone who chose to be included while protecting everyone who chose to remain unchanged. The war that had never quite begun ended with the universe itself becoming larger. The galaxy that had exiled humanity became something that humanity helped guide. And the future stretched ahead, infinite with possibility, filled with consciousness exploring realities beyond imagination, while never forgetting the humble matter from which they had all risen. In the quantum deep where the Forerunners dwelt, new voices joined the cosmic chorus, diverse, unified, curious, and eternal. The children of the galaxy had come home at last, not as supplicants or conquerors but as equals ready to explore whatever lay beyond the boundaries of known existence. The age of transcendence had begun, and it was just the beginning.